Hello, my name is Nick Pringer. We've probably met before on a webinar. Joined today by Mr. Andrew Menke. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Just
Good.
fine. Happy to be here. Excited about this.
You know what today is?
What's today?
Today is Creighton plays in the Big East tournament day.
Okay, that's
In
great.
about, yeah, in about 2 hours is tip off. So we're pretty excited here in Omaha.
Yeah. Here in Minnesota, we don't have any basketball teams in it right now. So
It's a shame. That's a shame.
yeah, yeah.
We'll accept you. You can all root for Creighton. We'll be happy to have you.
All right, sounds good.
So a couple of housekeeping items, and then we're going to get into the demo. If you have questions on your screen, if you've been through this before, hit that Q&A button. Then it'll show up on my screen and on Andrew's screen. We can make sure to answer your questions. Yes, this is being recorded. So afterwards, Andrew will email you the recording, and we can email you the slides as well, so that you've got everything you need. Andrew, am I forgetting anything? Is that all the usual housekeeping?
Yeah, and then if you have any questions throughout this, just go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A. Don't put it in the chat. We might not get to it if it's in there. So the Q&A.
That's always gets us in trouble. Somebody writes it in the chat, and then the thread kind of extends on, and we forget about it. So yeah, hit it in the Q&A. Okay. So let's jump in as background. So I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Pringer Solutions Group, and we've developed a product called AskGenius. Andrew, who's up in Minnesota, is our product manager who owns AskGenius and is building it out and working with all the users that are taking advantage of it. So we're going to walk through the product today, and we'll start with some background. Here's how this all came to be, right? So we did a research project, we being the consulting firm Pringer Solutions Group. We run large 5, 10, 15, $20 million annual appeals for clients all across the country. So we're a fundraising consultancy. And in that role, we really wanted to know, how can we raise our clients more money? They're paying us a lot of money to do so, to bring them great ideas and to do things, you know, as good as possible. So we really started digging into pledge cards. And we did a huge research project, and we interviewed hundreds of clients, hundreds of dioceses from across the country. That's kind of the niche that we serve primarily. And we got all of their pledge cards, and we got their data, and we wanted to know, how do you set ask amounts, and what does your pledge card look like? And we spent about a year on that, and we found some pretty interesting things. And what we learned is that there's really two kinds of pledge cards out there. There is an open-ended pledge card, which looks like this, where if you zoom in here, you send it to the donor, usually with a letter. Then you have a pledge card where they can make a gift to your organization. And the open-ended pledge cards they just have a blank, right? Go ahead and write in the amount that you'd like to donate. The other kind of pledge card is a pledge card with ask amounts. Okay, and it looks something like this. This is a little bit more sophisticated than most, but the core of it is the same. On the pledge card, there are amounts sort of preset for the donor, which make it easier. The donor can just check a box to give a certain amount. And our question was, okay, so these are we see these out in the wild. What works better? You know, which pledge card should we be using? Because again, on the consulting side, we are helping, you know, dozens of clients across the country raise hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Any small little improvement to either the letter or the pledge card, the packaging, has a huge impact. So we're eager to optimize everywhere we can. So we want to know, which one of those pledge cards should we be using? And here's what we learned. The open-ended pledge card that looks like this is the best card for a certain group of people. And that group of people are major donors. If you are a major donor, and here I'm going to define it, it's mushy, but we're going to define it as asking for $10,000 or more. At a lot of organizations, it might be asking for $5,000 or more. But for that group of your top tier donors, you should use that open-ended pledge card. And the best analogy I have for this is, I put myself in the shoes of the donor, and I think about what it feels like for them. If they're about to donate $10,000, they probably feel great about it, and they're proud of that gift. They like writing it in there and sending it in, and it's their decision, and they've sent in that great, wonderful gift. That's a really positive experience for them. If you send them a pledge card with an ask amount on it for $10,000, that's a whole different feeling, right? As a donor, if I'm just checking a box and it's like already assumed that I'm going to give that amount, it feels a lot different. And to me, the analogy is, I might look out at my lawn, you know, on a Tuesday and think, the lawn's getting grass is getting a little long here in Omaha. and I'll think, I'm going to sneak home from work early today. I'm going to surprise my wife. I'm going to get that lawn mowed. It's going to look awesome. And I feel great about that decision. And then my wife texts me at like 3 o'clock and she says, what are you doing? Our lawn looks terrible. Would you just mow our dang lawn? And the same thing happens. I'm going to mow the lawn, but the feeling for me is entirely different when I've been asked to do it versus when I get the chance to volunteer it. So that is what we know about the open-ended pledge card. Use it for your major donors. That will have the best success for you. If you have any questions about that, hit that Q&A button and we can talk them through. The pledge card with ask amounts on it, which looks something like this. Sometimes it's vertical, sometimes it's horizontal. This card is best used for everyone else. Literally everyone else outside of major donors should be receiving a card with ask amounts on it. We've done the research, we've done the tests. It will raise you more money if you generate those ask amounts and if you generate the right ask amounts for folks. Okay, so use the ask amounts for everybody else. That then begged the question for us, okay, so we want to put ask amounts in front of our donors, but how do we set the perfect ask amounts? We had a hunch that we don't want to just send out a one-size-fits-all card, because for one donor, an appropriate ask amount might be $25 or $50. Another donor, it might be $500 or $1,000. So we did the research and we asked hundreds of clients across the country, how do you set those ask amounts? And here's what we learned. There's 3 ways that nonprofits set ask amounts. Number one, this is about a third of the nonprofits, they send everybody the same pledge card. So this is what we're talking about. They don't set ask amounts. They have one pledge card and they send the same ask amount, the same ask string to every donor. If you fall in this camp, you are leaving a ton of money on the table, right? So this is a good webinar for you. This is a good demo. We can already tell you you're going to raise more money next year. The second method is a little bit better. It's sort of a high, medium, or low. The nonprofits will segment out their pledge cards. They'll have a high version, a medium, and a low version, and they'll distribute those appropriately among their direct mail audience. The third version, which is a little bit less than a third of the clients that we spoke with, they have an algorithm. They have some sort of a math problem to generate those ask amounts. So it's not a B, or C. It's custom to each donor. But more often than not, that formula is this. Look at what they gave last year and then ask them for about 10% more. Okay. So those are the 3 ways that we learned that nonprofits set ask amounts. And that was not particularly satisfying to us, right? We are data nerds. The small improvements make a huge difference for us. And what was frustrating about it to us is that in your database, whether you use Razor's Edge or Salesforce or Salsa or Bloomerang or any of the great CRMs that are out there, in your database, you have a ton of really good information. You have giving history, you have zip code, and you can tell affluence by zip code. You have wealth research from either Target Analytics or iWave or Donor Search or one of those. You've got recency of gifts, all this stuff that we spend so much time working on to make sure that it's accurate in our database. It's all in there. But then when you go to send your direct mail out the door, you're not using any of it. And that's maddening to us. Same with method 2, you're using at most 2 of those data points and the rest is just going to waste. And then method 3, you're kind of going backwards. You're just looking at what did they give last year? And then again, all the other data points are not being used. And this was particularly troubling for those folks who were on our donor personas webinar that we did on Tuesday, I think. We talked about a certain kind of donor who we called him infrequent Earl. And he will make large gifts, but he will not give every year. And in this formula that a third of the nonprofits in the country are using, that infrequent Earl is going to get asked as if he's a new donor because he didn't give last year. He gave 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And the methods that people were using just weren't good enough to capture all the different habits that we know of donors. So essentially, all of the data that nonprofits were collecting were sitting inside of their donor management system, right? Many of you use Razor's Edge. And it was sitting there, and I hate to report this to any of the data processors on our team that are on the line here today, but it's just collecting dust. All of that work to go in and collect that data and make sure it's input the right way, none of it's being used. So we thought there's got to be a better way. So here's what we came up with. We decided in both the best and worst idea we ever had. Andrew and I talked to our clients. We said, we are going to do it better. We are going to set custom amounts for every single household for our consulting clients. So Pringer Solutions Group, we work with large organizations. We said, we're going to go through and we're going to set a custom amount for every single donor on your list, the perfect ask amount for every single donor before we send this direct mail out the door. And the way that we did that was very sophisticated. We opened up their donor management system. and we hit the export button, and we got all that data out of the donor management system, and we got it into Excel that we're working with. One of the first ones was the Diocese of Phoenix. Lisa Wentz, a good friend of ours, let us test out this theory. They had their most successful appeal in 15 years. Their average gift was up 20% when we did this. Recurring gifts were up 300% when we did this. We did this over, again, at the Diocese of Dallas, so about 80,000 records in their database. Their direct mail, it was the most successful appeal they've ever had. And their direct mail was up $1 million just by what we did, setting those perfect ask amounts, actually using the data we have in the database to set proper ask amounts and lift people up in their giving. Their average gift is up 16% when we made this slide. It's actually closer to mid-20s right now. So it worked really well. All the clients are happy. Our consulting firm is in turmoil because we can't keep doing it. There's just no way we can keep doing this. So we said there's got to be a better way. So we spent a year and we built a tool to do this process for us. It's called AskGenius. And Andrew's going to walk you through it in about 30 seconds. You can find it if you're on Blackbaud. If you use Razor's Edge, you can find it in the Blackbaud Marketplace. So just Google Blackbaud Marketplace and then look up AskGenius. You can find it. You can connect it. You can take it for a spin. If you don't use Blackbaud Razor's Edge, you can still use AskGenius. So if you're using, again, Salsa or Salesforce or Bloomerang, Neon, any of the ones that are out there, we have users on those platforms. There's just an upload an Excel sheet process for you to get the data in and then use the wizardry that is AskGenius. Okay, so that's the full background. Andrew, did I miss anything?
No, you covered it.
Was I accurate in how mad you and everybody was about going through Excel sheets for months and months?
No, you're very accurate. It was a great idea until we found out we had to do it for 60,000 plus constituents. So it
led us to this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Yep. All right, so I'll share my screen here and walk you through what AskGenius looks like. Okay, so here's so when you connect, as Nick mentioned, you can go through the Blackbaud Marketplace and connect there. If you are not on NXT, you can just go directly to our app, which is app.askgenius.com, and start a free trial to get started, and then upload an Excel document with all of your constituents. So once you're signed up and you sign in, you'll get to this home page. And to get started, you'll click on Create Ask Strings. And then again, you have two different options, two different paths you could go down. So one, you could upload an Excel file with all of your constituent info and giving history using our template. And then the other one, if you're on NXT, the easier route to go is just to connect to your database. So you'll go ahead and connect to Razor's Edge. So you'll get to this page where you'll have to select your environment. If you haven't uploaded your environment yet, you'll want to click on Add New. And then you'll have to sign into Blackbaud and then start the syncing process. The syncing process will typically take about a day to get through. It just really depends on how many constituents you have in your database. As you can imagine, reaching over to NXT and grabbing millions of data points that goes back 10 years or so takes quite a while. So this is the longest process in using AskGenius. After this, everything else is pretty quick. But you can get out of AskGenius. You can go about your normal day while everything is syncing. We'll email you when it's ready to go. Once you get the email and your data is synced, you can go ahead and click your environment and then go ahead and select an audience. So on this page, this is where you're going to select the audience you're reaching out to for this appeal. So in Razor's Edge, this would be the list of constituents that you'd create through a static query, or it's a constituent list that you would create in NXT. So you can go about it either way. What you have to do, you do have to save, if you create a static query, you do have to save it as a constituent list in NXT if you go that route. But once you do that, once you create your audience, you can go ahead and click this dropdown and we'll show all of your different constituent lists. And then you can select the one that you will be creating ask strings for, and then go ahead and map your appeal. All right, so up to this point, we're able to locate, AskGenius is able to locate the donors on your list and some of the general giving information. So latest gift, largest gift, last gift, things like that. So that's the information we are able to sort out and get right away. What we need your help with is finding where certain giving records are located. So the ones that we're primarily trying to find are the annual appeal gifts made last year, 2 years ago, and 3 years ago. Any major gifts or any gifts made to a major campaign, capital campaign, and then any recent gifts to a special event. So we need your help in locating where those records are in your NXT database. So what you can do is across from each of these, so say it's annual appeal gifts made last year, you can go across to this dropdown, and we will show you all of the different campaigns, appeals, and funds you have in your database. So you'll be able to find that here. Yeah, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, so this may shock you, but we have a lot of clients that use the funds and campaigns and the designations in different ways. Does it matter? Do they have to have the perfect database for them to map the fields, or how does that work?
No, you don't have to have the perfect database. You'll be able to, as long as you have them named inside of NXT, you'll be able to find them. Okay. It's going to be different for everyone, just depending on how you record gifts. But you will be able to find them. Even if you don't have appeals attached to campaigns, you can go down and find appeals that are just standalone. So yeah, that's
so they click that drop down, and then that's a window into their Razor's Edge, and whether it's clean or messy or whatever it is, everything that's in there, and they just go pick and say, here's where all the gifts were last year to this appeal, and here's where the golf outing event gifts were.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. Yep. So for in this instance, I record all my appeal gifts made last year in the campaign called Annual Appeal 2021. So I'll go ahead and select that and then save it. And then I'll do the same thing for appeal gifts made 2 years and 3 years ago. And then any capital campaign gifts, I'll go ahead and find that campaign that I stored those gifts in, go ahead and save that. And then anything to a special event. So if you have a golf outing, a gala, Giving Tuesday, whatever it might be that you would consider a special event, you can direct us and let us know where in NXT we can find those gifts. Another thing that we have is if you include soft credits in your recording, you have the ability to include that when we generate the ask amount. So we'll take that into notice that there are soft credits, and we'll take that into account. So once you're done with this page, and once you're done mapping out, you'll go ahead and select the number of asks. Before you do so, you'll want to name your appeal. We'll just call this demo. So the reason you do this is because if you start an appeal on AskGenius and you need to go do something else, you can always sign back in. The appeal will be saved for you, so you can continue where you left off. All right, so on this next page, so this is where.
Say for a second. Yeah, sorry, just for a second. Everybody, keep the questions coming in. So we'll tackle all the questions here in a couple minutes. But I just want Jim and folks to know that we saw your questions. We're going to make sure to run through those. So keep them coming.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, so on this page, this is where you're telling us how many ask amounts you want in your ask string. So what are you going to put on your commitment form when all this is said and done? At the end of this, so what we provide to you, so once you run your audience list through, we generate the ask amounts. At the end of this, what we will send you are Excel spreadsheets with your audience in them. And it's going to have all of your donor information, address, emails, anything else you need from NXT in order to complete your mailing. We will send that to you in the end. So in this page, you're telling us how many ask amounts you want us to generate for you, and then we will generate those and then provide them in that Excel spreadsheet. So it's ready to send to the mail house. So for here, I'll just go with 4 ask amounts in a string, and then I'll go with annual and monthly ask amounts. And then I'll go ahead and choose a strategy. And then Nick, would you like to walk through the different strategies?
Yeah, so here, again, we don't want to make the decision for you. We wanted to create a tool, candidly, for ourselves to save us a lot of hassle, but turns out that other people want to use it as well. The secret sauce is what we use for all of our clients. So pulling back the curtains a bit, when we're running a direct mail appeal, the secret sauce is what we've built up over 15 years of doing this. That's just the right amount of increase, where appropriate, based on, campaign gifts and based on wealth research. It's what we would do. So if you do nothing else, I would do a free trial and check out the secret sauce. There's also Nice and Easy, which is a scaled back version, because we do have some users who say, my executive director is a little bit skittish about asking for a lot more. We just want to invite people to give what they gave last year, and in a couple areas, lift them up, but really we just want to be really conservative. Swing for the fences is the algorithm that it's appropriate but aggressive, right? So it's not going to burn any bridges, but it really is going based a lot more heavily on wealth research, asking, making a little bit more of a lift based on what they've given in the past. Those are the three that I'd work with right now as we roll this out. So again, we just kind of started this. We've been using it internally now for about a year. We just started opening it up and letting users, take advantage of it on their own. As we learn more, we're going to keep developing more algorithms. So we already have a couple in the works just for hospital foundations, a couple that are really focused on high schools and graduation year stuff. So we'll continue to roll out new algorithms, and our goal is to just serve it up for you so you can play around and see what works best, what fits best for you. And we do have a lot of clients actually that will split a list, an audience, and do secret sauce with half and do swing for the fences with the other half, and then monitor those results as they come in to find out what works best.
Yeah, so here we'll go with secret sauce. So once you choose your strategy, you'll go ahead and calculate the ask amounts. So now we're taking all of your donor data, we're applying the algorithm, and then we're generating the ask amounts. This will take several minutes. Once this is finished, you'll go ahead and you'll arrive at the summary page. So there's a lot of fun things in here to show you. So the first thing is, this is it's the first look at the breakdown of your constituents and what ask ranges they're in. And as we go through this, we are focusing on that first ask amount, what we call the anchor amount. And all the other ask 2, 3, and 4 on that string is based off of that first amount. So that's what we're pinpointing and we're showing you throughout this. So you'll see all of your different constituents. If you hover over these columns, you can see in this case, there's 9,000 constituents being asked for $100 to $250, and so on and so forth. So you can go in and click on one of these columns to review those constituents within that group. You can also go down to these donor types. So if you want to review any of your renewals, recaptures, your non-donors, if you want to look at those constituents specifically, you can click onto one of those tiles and review that list. And then we have flagged for review. And then Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about why we do this?
Yeah. Yep. So when we built it, we wanted a way internally. The math part's great. And I think of that last screen that Menke was on, which showed the little spinning wheels and it's applying the math. And I get the biggest kick. It takes about 2 minutes to do what used to take us weeks, and lots of heartache. But it's still just a math problem at the end, So we're taking all the data that we have and it's applying that algorithm and our hard-earned knowledge to set those ask amounts. But a math problem, I still don't trust it completely, right? And you shouldn't either. You need to monitor it. So our biggest fear was that we'd create these algorithms and people would run their list through them and then they just send the mail out the door. And if you do that, what's going to happen is maybe you had a unique situation. Maybe somebody passed away last year and made $1 million gift to your appeal. Well, the math problem is going to ask him for somewhere near $1 million again. And that's not ideal. So what we did is think of it as we put in some governors, we put in some restrictions that we wanted to flag certain kinds of asks, because we want you, the user, to look at them again. You can approve them as is, but we want to make sure you get your eyes on them. And that's going to be any ask amount that's $5,000 or more, we flagged it for review, meaning that if we want you to look at it and approve the amount or knock it down or increase it if you want. The other one is if we're asking for 3 times more than their gift last year. And that happens occasionally, like if we have someone who's infrequent, who made a big gift in the past and then maybe took a couple of years off, and then we're asking them for, somewhere halfway in between. We just want your eyes on that as well. And the third one is $1,000 more than last year's gift. So the reason we do that is just we want to make sure that you're taking a look at it. The last thing we want to do is have any awkwardness between you and a donor. So this is an incredibly powerful tool. It's going to raise you a lot more money, but you need to look, your donors better than we do. So if you do nothing else, you run it through the algorithm, and then you go ahead and click on the tiles there for the ones that we flagged, and you look through them, and you either say, yep, approved, or you say, oh, I'm going to adjust this one. I know this donor, here's what happened. Or maybe they gave a double gift last year because of some tax things. So there's a little bit of work for you to do on your end, but we want to make it as easy as possible and like serve those up to you on a platter, so that once you've gone through those, you can be pretty dang confident that you've got a good set of ask strings.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at one of these. Let's go with the $500 to $1,000 ask one. Looks like it has a good mix of flagged for review and your ones that are ready for export. So you'll click into the tile and it'll show you your constituent list. Give it a second here to load.
Constituent ID, last name, first name, all the giving history. So this is the page that you're going to use to double check, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll show you all of your constituents. And then the first thing you'll see next to your constituent is ask one. You can adjust this. You can go up or down depending on where you want them to be, or you can set a custom amount. So that's if you want to change any of the ask amounts, you have the ability to do that. Next to the ask amounts, it's in this red box is the reason why they were flagged for review. So if they are flagged for review, we'll show you why they were. For these three that are flagged, they're being asked for 3 times their appeal gift last year. So now you know the reason why. So you can continue reviewing based off of that knowledge. We'll also show you the export location. So like I mentioned before, we're going to send you Excel spreadsheets with your audience list, including the ask amounts. You have the option to split up your audience into 2 different lists. So you can put them in your primary list, or you can put them in your secondary list. What we're going to do is anyone that is flagged for review, we're going to automatically put them in the secondary list for you. As you review these constituents and you see the ask amounts, if you're okay with them and you want to put them in your primary list, you can go ahead and switch them over. No problem. So that's up to you, how you want to use these lists, the primary and secondary list. But just know that everyone that's flagged for review will automatically go into that secondary list. So again, as you're reviewing, you go further to the right. What you'll also see is the critical ask factor. So this is the factor in the giving history that determined the ask amount that we assign to each donor. So it could be the appeal gift made last year. It could be the zip code. It could be an average gift, their average gift to the institution. It's the factor that we saw in the giving history that we use to generate the ask amount. And Nick, you had something to say about that?
Yeah, and this whole thing is a labor of love, so we've been tweaking it and getting it better as we go. This blue button is the answer to the question of why are we asking this person for this amount, right? So if you look and someone's flagged and it says $1,000 and you're thinking, how the heck did we end up at $1,000? That is what's going to tell you. And if you think of it in terms of layers, go back to the spreadsheet analogy. The first thing we look at is what did they give last year? And then what did they give 2 years ago? And we continue going layer by layer, and we only move it up. It never goes down. So we'll set an ask amount if they gave last year, and then we'll look at 2 years ago. And if the data tells us we can lift the ask amount a little bit, we will. If not, we'll keep it where it is. And we'll keep going layer by layer. And the last layer to trigger is the one that shows here. So it could be, as Mankey said, could be what they gave last year. It might be they made a giant campaign gift. It could be the zip code they're in, or it could just be the baseline. Maybe there's no data whatsoever in your amount, and it's just setting that ask amount based on the minimum of the strategy that you chose. And we also, I'm sure you're going to show them, Andrew, we're wide open in the math. Like you could recreate all of this if you had the time and effort. You could recreate all of this math in Excel, but we just know that you'd probably rather do this in a matter of an hour or two than spend a couple weeks on it. So if you want to know every single donor, you can click on it and see exactly how we got to that ask amount.
Yeah, so how you do that is under the critical ask factor, you can click into one of these blue buttons. So we can take a look at appeal gift made last year. This person's being asked for $575. And then we show you all of our math. So we don't hide any of it from you. We think it's important that you see exactly how we got to that ask amount. Not only do we show you the different layers we go through in the process, but we also show you how do we round, how do we break it down into monthly amounts here at the bottom. So that's all available to you. So as you're reviewing, if you're curious about why certain ask amounts are assigned, you can just click into the ask logic and then check it out for yourself.
Yeah. Great.
All right, so that's an overview of how to review the ask amounts. One other thing I want to show you is there's a lot of different ways in which you can view this page and make it easier for you to go through your list and check ask amounts. One thing I want to point out is if you have a list that has a lot of people on the secondary list and you want to just bring them over to that primary list, you can select all of your constituents and then go over to one of these and choose primary lists. So then everyone's going to be on that list in that group. So a lot of different ways to make it easy for you to review these, to edit. So once you're done with that, you'll go ahead and apply. And then it'll bring you back to the summary page. All of the numbers will fluctuate based off of the changes you made. So you'll see the columns go up and down, the numbers in the tiles will change. So it's all in real time. Nick, you wanted to add something?
No, I was going to say, just in terms of users, so you've got your audience, you run them through the algorithm, we flag some for review, you click on that page and you either approve them in bulk or you go through one by one, you apply it and you see exactly on this page how it turns out. And then when it looks good, you hit the old export button.
Yeah, so you prepare your export. We're going to show you the mandatory fields. So these are all the fields that we're going to automatically put into your Excel spreadsheets, into your constituent lists. It includes all of the donor information plus the ask amounts. We also have suggested fields. So if you need any of these fields for your mailing, you can leave them in there. If you want to take some off, so if you don't need the title or the age, you can just click out of it. And then at the bottom here, so anything else you need from NXT for your mailing, whether it's for segmenting purposes or maybe different names that you need to include for mailing out, you'll be able to find it here. So you can add constituent codes, membership fields, and then if you have any custom fields in NXT, you can go ahead and click this drop down and we'll list all of them for you. So any attributes that you have, any custom fields, they'll be listed here. So say you need to know who was in last year's giving circle, you can just go ahead and click and save, and we'll include that in the spreadsheet for you.
So anything and this solves that problem that we've all had of, you've got, we don't want to deliver to you a spreadsheet with the perfect ask amounts and everything you need, but then you have a separate data set that has like the letter version they should receive, or you wanted to reference their graduation year and that's on a different data. So before you hit export, anything that lives in your Razor's Edge, an attribute or wherever it is, go find it, mark it down, and add it to the list so that when we spit it out, you can use that one master list and give it to your printer and have everything you need in one spot.
All right, so once you're done preparing your export, you can go ahead and export. We'll send you an email with the links that you can download to your desktop. So again, there's going to be the primary list and the secondary list, so you'll receive both of those. When you're done, it'll take you back to the appeal history. If you need to go back and edit anything, you're able to do so. So you can just continue your appeal, or if you've already exported, you can go ahead and edit. You can also duplicate your appeal. So if you want to create another list that's similar, and then if you need to export again, so say you got the email, you lost it, you have to export the list another time, you can hop back into AskGenius and export from the app.
Awesome.
All right, so that's what it looks like. Nick, do you want to talk about pricing before we get to questions?
Yeah, let's go through some questions and we'll talk about pricing. So this is the time, if you have questions, I'll tackle the ones that are in here, but go ahead and hit that Q&A button. Question from Jill, back when we were talking about mapping fields, Menke, what if, so everybody does their database differently, right? Some they run an appeal every year and each one is a new appeal and a new fund. Others just smash everything into the same one year after year. What if they use the same campaign name every year?
Yeah, if you use the same campaign every year, you may have the function to, or you may separate out the years in appeals, possibly. So you would find that campaign, you'd click the drop down, and then we'll show you all the appeals within that campaign. So maybe last year, 2021 is named under an appeal, or maybe it's named under a certain fund. So then you would just click on that specific appeal or fund where we can find those gifts from last year. So it may take a little bit of kind of getting used to it and seeing how it works. But if you have it in Razor's Edge, you will be able to find it in AskGenius.
Yeah. Another question as well. So it's sort of on the same thing. If we have multiple appeals throughout the year, would you map all of those appeal, or would you just do the same one? Go ahead and speak to that, and I can chime in.
Yeah. So I would just speak to that specific appeal that you're running for this year. I wouldn't use all of the appeals from last year, because you might want to generate different ask amounts based off of their giving to those specific appeals. So I would just, if you're running a very specific appeal at the time, look at the giving to that appeal from last year. Don't use all of the giving. We already take into account their total giving, total lifetime gift. So we do have that information. But we use specific appeal gifts very differently than if you just told us a total giving from last year. It just works with the algorithm very differently. And Nick, do you want to say anything more to that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So if this is your year-end appeal, map last year's year-end appeal, because that's important for us to know for the algorithm of what did they give to this specific appeal, because we want to base an ask. We want to know what that is, because we're as Andrew said, we're going to have all the other data anyway from average giving and stuff. So just map the specific appeal. And most of our clients, again, we built this for PSG first, and then we've kind of shaped it up so that others can use it. Most of our clients run one giant appeal every year. It's like they're big, at a school it might be, the GAP fund or the annual fund. So it's designed with that in mind. We have a lot of users who, like hospitals, who send out a grateful patient mailing, quarterly. So we just map where it was in that quarter last year, then everything works out. A follow-up point from Jill, who on our last one. So going back to, do they separate out their appeals by campaigns and funds? Situation where everything's going into one bucket, same campaign, same fund year after year. The only difference is gift dates. And we've got ways we can solve it, and Andrew can speak to it. But I would just, before he does, stress this. Again, we just sort of soft launched this thing. The result has been ridiculous. Like the number of people that have said, "Oh my gosh, where's this been my whole life?" But we're still at the stage where, when you have the questions like this, we will guide you through. So Andrew spends, when we're not doing demos, he's spending every hour talking through, like with Jill here, and saying, okay, here's how we can solve this for you. Like our customer service is going to be through the roof. I hope it is always that way, but just so you know kind of where we're at in the product of this life cycle, is we are going to find out whatever works best and hold your hand all the way through to make sure that it does. But with that said, Makey, what do we do when somebody throws it all in one bucket?
Yeah, so if everyone throws it in one bucket, it is more difficult to differentiate by year in AskGenius. So that's something where we could work with you on different solutions in order to separate those funds out by year. But you are not able to sort out by gift date inside of AskGenius. So unfortunately, in that case, it would not work. But with that said, you can always use the Excel upload function, which gives you the ability to then pinpoint those inside of Razor's Edge, export them into our template, and then upload them into AskGenius. So there is a workaround there if your funds are set up that way.
Yep. So workaround is the Excel template. We've had clients that go through and organize their data, like knowing what they want to do here. They're like, okay, well, now's the time for us to get this cleaned up, and we can guide you through that. If you want to do some global imports, you can break it into separate lists, and run each list separately. In time, we'll get better and better, and hopefully add some of that functionality. So there's still ways to do it. And where I'd end on this is just, you got to optimize your ask strings, right? So from all the research we've done, there are so few things left to a fundraiser that you can raise more money reliably One is, the tone and length and style of your letter, and number two is the ask amounts that you're putting on your pledge card. So don't let that one fun bucket discourage you, because no matter whether you're using AskGenius or doing it on your own, like, you've got to do this. Like, there's just not enough, levers that you can pull to increase what people are giving. So now is the time, jump right in. We had a question from John in Connecticut. John says, "Where's this been my whole life?" He's like, "How do we sign up? Where do we go?" Talk about pricing, talk about free trial stuff. Menke, do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, so I will. So after this webinar, in the next day or so, I'm going to follow up with everyone, and I'll send you different information. So I'll send security promises. I'll send you my link if you want to schedule a time with me. As we've been doing this, we understand that every organization is very different from each other. So you might have very specific questions that relate to your own organization. So I'll also send a link to my calendar. If you want to set up a meeting, we can talk through your issues or your questions specifically. So I'll send that. I'll also send the video as well. And then a link to our free trial. So everyone has the ability to go in today to set up your free account. You can run it through exactly as you saw today. With a free trial, you'll get up to 50 free ask strings for your list. So it gives you the ability to check it out, try it out, and then look at some of those ask amounts and how they were set up. And then regarding pricing, I'll share my screen here. And then Nick, if you want to.
Yeah. So it's, oh man, that's nice and clear. So it's a subscription service. So we get this question a lot, like, how many records can we run through? We want you to use as many as possible. So it's a subscription service. If you have less than 10,000 records, it's going to cost you $1,500 a year. And you get it for the entire 12 months, and you can use it every day if you'd like. So if you send out 4 or 5 different appeals, use it. There's no max amount, there's no cap. And then it just increases based on that. So when you connect it to Razor's Edge NXT, it's going to ping and find out how many constituents you have. It's going to say, okay, you're in the $3,000 a year tier, which is a pretty good sized organization, 25 to 50,000 constituents. And that will be your price for the entire year. When it goes to re-up a year later, it will just affirm, are you at the same level? Did you go down? Did you go up? And it'll give you your pricing to renew, for year 2. At some point, I'll say probably a year from now, we will be able to tell you with scary accuracy how much more money we're able to raise you through this. We're getting the data now. We're having so many people go through. We don't know that yet. What we know are the people that have gone through have raised a ton more money, right? And the word ton is very vague there, but they've raised a lot more money, many times what it ends up costing them. I just don't have that specific answer of, okay, Nick, if it's going to cost me $3,000, how much more am I going to raise? I would wager a steak dinner you're going to raise at least 10 times that, using ask strings, but we just don't know yet. So bear with us. In a year, we'll be able to calculate ROI a little bit better for you. Question from Jameson: do you have to give access to all records in Razor's Edge, or can you select 10,000 constituent records? It's entirely based on how many you have in your system. So we're building this. Believe it or not, we're not a tech firm, right? So we built a really useful tool that solves one really painful problem, but we don't have any designs to become a giant, software firm. So we're trying to make this as one-stop shopping as possible, where you sign up, you connect, it sees how many constituents you have, and it sets your pricing. Because we don't want to get into that haggle with every single user that wants to use it over who are you mailing to, who are you not. It's just a flat rate pricing. We think it's pretty darn cheap for what it's going to be able to raise you. We have had clients though that have used this as an excuse to go through and get rid of some dead weight, right? So some people that have passed away or some inactive constituents, and clean that out to make sure they get to a lower pricing, which would have the added benefit of, if you're in Razor's Edge, you'll end up paying less for Razor's Edge too if you cut back on your number of constituents. Menke, question for you: how's donor records calculated? So do you want to? You're more fluent in Razor's Edge than I am. I saying that the right way? Does it count records with giving history, or is it just everything in the environment?
It's everything in the environment. So it's so in terms of price, I think it's a question about pricing. So again, yep. We're looking at all the records in your NXT database. How you differentiate the ones that you're reaching out to or you're creating ask strings for, that's through creating your audience list. But in terms of pricing and setting up we do grab all of the data within NXT and bring it into AskGenius.
Oh, look at that. Nice. So Amy Showers on the line. Amy is one of the bravest and the first people to run through this end to end. So she's in Eastern Iowa, and she ran through and used AskGenius on just trusting us, and it worked really, really dang well for her. So that was nice of Amy to chime in. So they're a small steer. They paid $1,500 and raised, many times that. Okay. Anything, so where do we go from here? We talked about that a little bit, Andrew. Let's put just a finer point on it. So you're going to send an email with some background, with the slides, with the recording. If somebody's interested, what's the best thing? Is it for them to sign up for a free trial, or just reply to your email, or what should they do?
Yeah, do both. So if you want to sign up for a free trial, check it out for yourself. You can also sync to NXT in the free trial too, to see what price point you would be at. You can check out the subscription based off of how many constituents you have. And then also I'll send my calendar. So if you want to get together one-on-one or bring your team along and check out the app again and ask specific questions, happy to help out.
That's great. And we did get one more question. I'll just hold it off for the one-on-one. There's a question about Canada. So Canada is a whole different environment. We have users in Canada, in the UK. We have users in Australia. Each one has their own little nuances in terms of like specifically Blackbaud and some of the services that are available to you. We can handle that as a discussion. So just reach out, schedule a time with Andrew, and we can answer those specific questions. Okay. So with that, thank you all for being here. We would love to see you and show you what you can do and how much more money you can raise with some good ask amounts. We'd love to be a part of that process for you. Sign up for a free trial, email Menke, set up a demo, whatever you want to do. We'd love to talk to you. Tell your friends about it. We're excited to kind of get this out into the world. And if you have any questions, of course, we're here anytime. And with that, I will close this out. Thank you, Andrew. We will see you later this afternoon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.